All right, thank you. Welcome
Give a live
back.
mic.
I believe we're going to move on to item 10B. Is that correct, where we are now?
Yes, sir. Item 10B is a recommendation to approve payment to the Southwest Florida Regional Planning Council effective October 1st, 2024, at a rate of 15 cents per capita in accordance with the replacement interlocal agreement approved by the board, item 10A, on September 24th, 2024, and authorize any necessary budget amendments. This item is brought to the agenda by Commissioner McDaniel.
Commissioner McDaniel, you're recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, has anybody wished you a happy birthday today yet?
A couple. Thank you, sir. A couple of things I want to say here. I didn't bring this back to the board, and it was brought back to the board because our staff is having an issue with going forward with this payment. We accepted and approved the draft interlocal MOU and bylaws of the RPC. And as I explained to you last year when we accepted and approved those, in my effort to lead by example, as the chairman of the RPC, I felt it important that we oblige ourselves to agree to those things, but we're now running into issues with an opinion from our clerk as to whether or not that money should be paid. And since I have announced her, I'm going to ask her to come to the podium, and then we can have a discussion about the payment. And you can hear her rendition. She and I went round and round about this yesterday and last week, and I don't think we're done going round.
Cheerfully, and happy birthday. We'll start out with that again.
Thank you.
Yes, commissioners, I think part of the discrepancy that the commissioner and I have gone around about is the last time that we paid on this interlocal was in 2019, and others were not paying, and there were undue considerations that if not a lot of people are paying, what are we getting? Why are we paying everything? So that was back in 2020. The board denied the payment. So then jump forward to September of 24, when you repealed that existing agreement and you replaced it with a new version agreement. And while the agreement that you replaced it with indicates that effectively between, in other words, not everyone had to sign the agreement to participate for you to participate. At this point, however, no one has signed the agreement since September to participate in this agreement. That had consequently, the planning director sent us invoices at a rate of 30 cents, with a note saying that because the contract had not been executed, it was at the 30 cents, but we should only pay 15 because it would probably be executed later. Consequently, I didn't really have an executed agreement other than by this board as the only participant. Do we pay 15? Do we pay 30? You're articulating that now. And what was the other point I was just going to make? We did not have budget for this in the county's budget at this time. That had ended back in 19 when the county stopped paying according to this. And so we currently have no budget item for this. And there's also a pending House bill and Senate bill, both, that want to discontinue this whole process of the regional planning. So I am here to answer any questions regarding the payment or non-payment and get direction intent.
Commissioner McDaniel, anything else?
Yes, well, Mrs. Kenzel actually brought the points forward. The reality of this is we all know the strifes that we as an organization and participating with the Regional Planning Council have gone through. Commissioner LaCastro, you and I have served on that board, and you've watched the antics for quite some time. I certainly am not a proponent of wasting taxpayer money, ever. It was one of my wants. I actually assisted in the rewrite of the MOU, the interlocal, and the bylaws for the organization. I wasn't aware, and I guess my question is as much for our county attorney, is if this board approves a payment, does that legally allow the clerk to make that payment or or not?
Well, the clerk would be authorized to pay, but if the clerk's opinion is different, that it shouldn't be paid, then she won't pay. If she's an independent constitutional officer, it's
Okay.
I,
My,
Commissioner, just could I say, my intent is not to not pay what the board wishes, but we do have to have proper documentation. I need to know which agreement is real. Right now, the other agreement at the 30 cents was repealed and killed in September, so that agreement doesn't exist. That's how we were billed. The new agreement goes to the 15 cents, but it has not been fully executed. And the agreement that you signed has a caveat that not everyone needs to participate, but in this case, no one else is participating. And that's why I wanted to bring it forward, just for your information. It's not to argue, just I need direction with documentation and with budget and authority.
so, having said that, the RPC is relegated to abide by the old interlocal agreement, MOU, and bylaws, because that organization has not been able to achieve a quorum to vote on anything. The meetings that I've been attending on a monthly basis have been relegated to basically a quorum of the executive committee just to have an RPC meeting. I have already been in contact with my colleagues. There are 6 counties that are currently, by statute, required to be a member of an RPC, a Regional Planning Council. I've been in contact with all of those counties. I am planning on going to each one of those counties to an agenda item, bringing forward this draft interlocal, draft MOU, and draft bylaws that we have adopted, asking them to do the same, which will then bring them back into the fold, at which point then we'll all accept and adopt and ratify, hopefully, the ones that we're now designating as draft. And my ask here today is that we make this first quarterly payment, because that's one of the things that I did. I cut the per diem from 30 cents, which the RPC currently has to abide by, because that's the only set of rules that they have. I cut that per diem from 30 cents per person to 15 cents and divided the payments up into quarterlies to allow for all of the electeds who are responsible for expending the taxpayers' money an opportunity to see relevance. So,
And just, Commissioner, actually, we have been billed at the 30 rate because the director is indicating the second one has not been executed by anyone else, and she billed to the 30-cent rate and said, but we could pay the 15 pending that other agreement being executed. That's why I need an amount. There are 2 quarters. At the 30, I believe it's 57,000, and it would be half of that, obviously, at 15.
you already said that. And I already said that the RPC only has the 30-cent per diem agreement to operate off of, even though there is a new draft set of MOU, interlocal, and bylaws at the 15 cent that this board has accepted and ratified, and in so doing, canceled that previous agreement. It requires each one of the members of the RPC and their legal counsel to express an opinion and adopt those agreements before the Regional Planning Council itself, a statutorily created organization, can bill anything other than the 30 cents that they currently have in their existing MOU and interlocal and bylaws. So we're only obligated to pay the 15 cents and only obligated to pay the first quarter, 1 quarter.
I think we understand what the issue is. One real quick question, do we have to do this today, or can we wait until they send us a legitimate agreement?
Well,
That's just a,
we certainly don't have to do anything today. One of my goals is by showing leadership by example, I'll be able to go to our colleagues, stand in front of them at their podium and talk and share that Collier County has accepted this agreement, leadership by example, and we are willing to pay that 15 cents per diem.
Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess, I know this is your baby, and I mean, this is a
This is my baby. I'm the huckleberry that's the anointed
With that
one.
then, what happens if there just are no participants? What happens to the RPC?
It folds up in September. We have current budgeted money out of reserves and expenditures currently right now, and I don't know, forgive me, Madam Clerk, I call her Crystal, but I
It's your
believe
birthday, that's fine.
the burn
Crystal's fine.
the burn rate expires the organization in September if nobody else pays anything and/or the current executive director doesn't get any grant monies that where she can pull off administration fees out of the top of the grant money.
What real benefits does the RPC provide as incentive if we were to keep this rolling?
In the recent past, Commissioner, there hasn't been an enormous amount of benefit. Relevancy has been a conundrum with this organization since I got on 8 years ago. If you'll recall, there was originally a department in Tallahassee. I'm stuttering right now because I have another name for it. It's the Department of Community Affairs. I had another name for it back in the day. That organization was a planning organization for the entire state. They had regulations that then distributed those regulations to the RPCs, the regional planning councils, and I believe there are 8 in the entire state, maybe 8 or 9 RPCs. They originally, when the DCA was in existence, they had an authority. DRIs, comp plans, rezones, use changes had to come before the RPC to receive an approval. And when Governor Scott disavowed the DCA, turned it into the Department of Economic Affairs, he disbanded the authority of the RPCs. Our RPC was never able to adopt a new interlocal, a new set of bylaws, and a new MOU to conform to the new statute with regard to the lack of authority. The people that were on that board didn't want to give up that hammer, didn't want to give up that power. Sarasota made a motion because state law requires all counties to be a member of an RPC. Sarasota said, well, we're more aligned with Tampa's metropolitan area, so we're going to move our membership to the Tampa RPC. And they discontinue payment because then we found out that statute doesn't require us to pay, it only requires us to be a member. And so Lee County went, Sarasota's not paying, we're not going to pay. Charlotte did the same thing. I hung on, Collier County hung on paying for 2 years, 3 years after I was in because of federal Promise Zone initiative. It was a rural Promise Zone initiative that came out of the Obama administration for economically deprived rural communities, and that Promise Zone initiative was bequeathed to the RPC for Glades, Hendry, and our community of Immokalee. And my hope was by continuing to support the RPC, we would be able to garner benefits from that rural Promise Zone initiative. That was never derived, and after 3 years of strife, I am the one that brought the motion to this board to discontinue funding the Regional Planning Council. I am the one that, after that, rewrote the bylaws, rewrote the MOU, rewrote the interlocal agreement as draft, and then brought it forward to you last year to be able to go back. I got anointed as the chairman of the RPC last fall. Up until that point, I was a member that was going.
Couldn't have missed that meeting.
Yeah, and so consequently, my hope is, and this comes back to your my statement here, Commissioner Hall, who can argue about the necessity for regionality with regard to planning, zoning, traffic, so on and so forth? Who can argue about regionality with regard to our water quality, water quantity, beach renourishment, beach restoration, so on and so forth? The necessity of regionality and having regional discussions, it's imperative that we know what Lee County is doing from a planning and zoning standpoint. That we know what our neighbors all around us are in fact doing. And so there's no argument, in my mind, there's no argument about the necessity of regionality. We have a dysfunctional regional planning council, and this is my stab at trying to bring back that organization to have some sort of relevance.
So I guess if you said you're going to go on as an agenda item to the other counties,
I am.
why don't we just allow you the time to do that with the understanding that we're willing to participate at the 15-cent level if they can get their act together and cooperate without anybody else's cooperation? I say we tried and didn't.
Well, you can certainly do whatever you like. I'm looking for another bullet in my clip when I'm going to talk to these people. Leadership by example. Hendry County is already, they haven't formally voted yet, but Hendry County is coming back in. Glades will do the same thing. Lee, Charlotte, and Sarasota counties are next on my hit list. My goal with this is to leadership by example, show the initiative that we're willing to participate. I certainly will go, irrespective of whether or not this payment is authorized or not. In my mind, this payment should have already been authorized with our rejection or discontinuance of the previous agreement and placement of this agreement. It should have been budgeted in this current year. It wasn't, and now there's discourse between our clerk and our staff as to how to actually fund this, and so we're at this point right now.
Commissioner LaCastro.
If we voted right now to pay this, what would the total be? What's the size of it?
The first quarter, they've billed 28, so it'd be half of that, a little over 14,000 for one quarter at the 15-cent rate.
And that's effectively it. There's 400,000 people in Collier County. Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I didn't mean to interrupt,
Yeah,
but it's 15 cents per diem, and the estimated population per the RPC is 390. So it's a total for an annual expense of $60,000 and one quarter.
Commissioner Cowell.
And then just let me clarify, because they did do a 380, it's 2023 population rate was how they calculated this, but they reduced it by the Naples population, and that's how you come out with the total. But that was not articulated in any of the invoicing, and those are trying to match it to contracts.
Commissioner Cowell.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the whole conversation here. You had made the comment how Sarasota felt they were more aligned with the Tampa area. Now, does Sarasota participate in the Tampa's RPC with a monetary join, or are they just joined because they have to statutorily belong to an RPC?
They didn't join. They announced that they were going to join, but it takes a gubernatorial maneuver to move you out of one RPC and into another. So they announced that they wanted to join, but they never left the Southwest Florida Regional Planning Council.
Okay, Commissioner Cowell.
Okay, I'm not done. So I guess my question is, statutorily, we're required to belong to a region. They now still reside in our region. But by participating monetarily, what do you benefit that they don't benefit? Because I've seen this before. I come from like an area back in the day in D.C. area where you had people that belonged to the union that, or certain people pay into a union, like with law enforcement, that other ones that didn't. But when they negotiate the contract, the ones that didn't pay into the union still got the benefit of the negotiation. So by not paying into this and still belonging to it statutorily, because you're required to belong to it, you don't reap any benefit from the few or whatever decisions are made?
In all sincerity, I can go into as long of a 8-year story as you want me to.
It is your birthday, but please don't.
Yeah, I don't really need. I just want like a kind of like a simple answer. Like, yes, they still benefit for whatever work somebody else does that pays into it because they belong to it.
There is a
Required to
benefit.
belong to it.
Excuse me for interrupting. There is a benefit by the RPC's existence, by the Southwest Florida Regional Planning Council's existence. Could it be better? Absolutely. Has it been great? No. And I'll be the first one to admit that it hasn't been great for quite some time. I actually even said at our meeting last Thursday that my board had agreed to pay this quarterly payment and one quarterly payment, but I had no intention of continuing to contribute to this organization just to support the salaries of 2 staffers that the RPC now has. If I don't have other participants, I'll be the first one to bring it back and discontinue the payment. My ask on this payment today is just to give, as I said, give me another bullet in my clip, so when I talk to our colleagues in Sarasota and Lee and Charlotte, that we have agreed to make the payment and come back into the fold.
All right, why don't we, I think we understand what the issue is. It's just a question of whether we want to write a check for the $14,000 for the quarter or not.
Or wait,
And so maybe one of the suggestions is that we could make the commitment to pay the $14,000 as long as at least one other county joins. Would that, because you may go up there and find out that nobody else joins. That's the only issue.
Right, and and there again, I'm not a game player. I mean, we could agree to make the payment, and do that payment in May, or not, as the case may be. I already know that Hendry County's coming back in line, and I feel that Glades will as well. I just haven't had actual meeting time set with our colleagues in Lee, Charlotte, and Sarasota counties. So,
Let's go ahead and get a motion on the floor. Then I think we all understand what the issue is. So,
I'll make a motion that we make this first quarterly payment.
all right, there's a motion.
When? By May?
By the end of April.
Well, once we make the commitment to make the payment, we're going to make the payment whether it's the end of April or the middle
it's
of
what it's based on. In other words, is there any other criteria than a date, or is it based on someone else joining and paying?
We understand. I'm just saying that by saying we're going to make the payment on or before the end of April, I mean, I think we're either making a payment or we're not. So,
I understand, and if you folks feel differently than I do, this is relatively, again, I'm not a proponent of wasting taxpayers' money, ever have I been. This is an effort to provide relevancy to allow this organization to exist.
Commissioner LaCastro?
I think Commissioner Saunders has the best idea, which kind of splits the difference. I think by us voting to make the payment, but only if another county does, I think it does give you a bullet in your magazine to go up to the other counties and say, hey, we're committed to making the payment, but if everybody else says no, then our clerk's not going to write the check. So I think, and like you said, it may be a little bit of gamesmanship, but I think that's the best suggestion. That would be a motion that I would support, not just the flat out, we're making the payment. Like, I understand what you're saying. You're going to go before the counties, and it's showing that, hey, we're leaning forward. But I think the way he couched it is what I would agree with, is saying we agreed for the payment, but, only if another county steps forward, and then in our direction to the county clerk, the clerk courts would be write the check. 2 counties agreed after Commissioner McDaniel met with them. I mean, I think that's just smart business.
Commissioner Hall?
Thank you, Chairman. Do you feel like if we don't pay the payment right now, that do you feel like you're going back on your word?
Kind of. Yes, sir. I mean, we already accepted this back in September. It didn't come to light to me until the recent past that this funding wasn't appropriated for. I understand why the RPC's billing at the 30 cents and not the 15 because of what we've already discussed. And again, if you all feel okay with one other county coming in and that initiates our payment, I'll amend my motion to that.
All right. We have an amended motion. Is there a second? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I would be in favor of making that payment or making a promise to the payment if we had a signed agreement with the majority of the counties. How many counties is there?
6.
Can we get at least 3?
I don't know. And here's the issue that I'm dealing with, that we have been dealing with at the RPC. And Mr. Chairman, if you're tired of hearing this, I apologize.
No, I'm not. No, you're missing the point. the point is that we all understand what the issue is. And we can keep talking about what the issue is. It's pretty simple. And so that's why I said, let's make a motion and to see if it passes. So you have a motion, you withdrew your motion.
I withdrew it and I
But if
amended
you want to
it.
remake that motion, that's fine, and we're going to vote on it, because I think we all understand. This is not sending a rocket to the moon. So
Okay.
we'll entertain a motion.
My motion is that we make the payment when one other county comes in.
All right?
With financial commitment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Kensel, you understand the motion?
Yes,
If
sir.
another county comes in, you're writing the check
Yes, sir, for 1 quarter.
for 1 quarter.
1 quarter.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
you.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay.
And happy birthday again.
Whatever.
Whatever.
That's ridiculous. What did you turn, 12?
Whatever. How many wishes he get?
He doesn't get any more wishes after today, so we might as well keep it going.
I think I've expired my wish list, haven't I?
Get him a magic 8-ball.
What about Commissioner LaCastro and
Uh,
Troy? Do you want,
I-
we'll give you guys a happy birthday?
Yeah, item 11A is the traffic light. We have a traffic light in item 11A. I'd like to make a motion to continue that for 2 weeks. Okay, I'll withdraw the motion.
Yeah, good idea.
This brings us to item 11A. This item was continued from the March 11th, 2025 BCC meeting. This is a recommendation to approve a traffic signal agreement with Cameron Commons Unit 2 Property Owners Association. Authorize the chairman to sign the traffic signal agreement that will authorize the construction of a traffic signal at the intersection of Immokalee Road and Bel Air Bay Drive, and memorialize that the traffic signal may be removed at the county's discretion. Ms. Trinity Scott, your department head for Transportation Management Services, is here to present or answer questions at your pleasure.
Thank you, County Manager. I can do a presentation if you would like. Otherwise, the Reader's Digest version is, in January of 2022, the board accepted a traffic signal study at this intersection and directed staff to come back with a formal agreement noting that should the signal be installed, that we could remove it at any time, and that the Cameron Commons would waive any future business damages with regard to that, because we know that in the future, future improvement will impact this intersection.
Okay, and who's paying for it?
Cameron Commons.
Commissioner McDaniel?
Yes, and just a quick question, because when we talked about this back in the day, I thought that the location of the light at Goodland was a better location for both plaza, both Founders Square and Cameron Commons.
That would be incorrect. The current traffic queue for Collier Boulevard and Immokalee Road currently queues back
So
beyond that, what would be that signal location.
So the proximity to the intersection of Immokalee and 951 isn't good for Goodland to be the light in the intersection. This is a huge improvement to that area, direly needed. So I'm in complete support of this.
Commissioner Colwell?
Thank you, Chairman. I initially was the one that pulled this at the last commissioner meeting and put it on the regular agenda, because I just had a few questions that I think I didn't get enough information on. And, you know, over the past 2 years, we've been trying to ease the traffic flow on Immokalee Road due to its congestion, especially certain times of the day. And, you know, putting another traffic light so close to 2 traffic lights, I just had a lot of question about it. I did have the opportunity to have a few meetings. I had a meeting with their representation, and I got a better idea, and I think some things were passed back and forth, and I told them that, you know, I can live with the light now after some certain concessions that we talked about.
Commissioner Hall?
Thank you, Chairman. Wasn't there something about originally there was a private road and they shut that off and it cut off access to the commercial property? And so they're going to benefit mainly from this new traffic light? Something like that.
Let me go back in my presentation. So the intersection that we are speaking about is right here at Bel Air Bay Drive. back in early 2000, 2001, the county installed a traffic signal at Woodcrest. At that time, Limestone Trail was open. It is a private roadway, but it was currently open. And this is the commercial area that with the arrow. And so they had the benefit of having access to that newly constructed traffic signal. In 2021, Heritage Bay PUD amended their PUD to allow for gating of private roadways, which was Limestone Trail. And they did gate that roadway, which eliminated that access. We did traffic counts prior to the gating and after the gating. And the results of those traffic counts indicated now that Bel Air Bay would warrant a traffic signal based on the U-turns that were occurring further down the road. So in this exhibit here, you see the Woodcrest Drive. This is Limestone Trail, which has been gated, and this would be the location of the proposed new traffic signal. And this is currently where they're doing the U-turns, which is actually the intersection that Commissioner McDaniel was speaking of, which is Goodland Bay and Founders Square.
Okay, good, thanks.
All right, any other questions? Obviously, we have some folks here. I don't know if you have a presentation to make or any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Noel Davies on behalf of the applicant. No additional comments on our end. We are in agreement with paying 100% of the light and the conditions of the agreement that allows the county the discretion to remove the light at any point in the future.
We have any registered speakers? All right.
Oh, yes, sir. There are 67 out in the hallway waiting just with bated breath to wish Commissioner McDaniel a happy birthday.
They're going to have to wait a few more minutes. So we do have a motion. Commissioner Caldwell.
I did want to clarify something, because after we had our meeting yesterday that we spoke, and I told you that I was comfortable after we discussed controlling the right turn, because I feel that actually adds to the problem when they queue up, because while they're waiting for the green arrow to turn for left, which is the whole idea, getting them out on the left turn, was the whole idea having the light to safely get them traversed left and go east. But I felt if you let them keep making rights on red at that new light, you're just going to create another problem with queuing cars back while their green light is going east and west. So I think you spoke to your petitioner. I just want to make sure we're clear on that was something you agreed with yesterday with me, and let the other commissioners hear what the reasoning behind it was.
So Commissioner Kowal has asked for consideration of a no right on red at the intersection for the reasons that he articulated. And Mr. Davies coordinated with his traffic engineer, and I coordinated with our traffic engineer as well. And we don't have an issue with that, and that's something we can do as part of our permit review. The signal has not been approved, so it's still in review for us for our right-of-way permitting.
All right, then I think we're ready for a motion. Commissioner McDaniel?
When I make the motion, do you want me to also stipulate about, or just allow the system to control the right on red?
Yeah, or at least the signage that would say no right on red.
Right.
Because it kind of defeats the purpose of, because I don't want people to still go down and try to do the U-turn, because they don't want to wait for the light to turn green, and people are going to do that. And then Mockley, we know, backs up to the U-turn.
How about if we just make a motion for the approval of the light and let the studies decide how in fact traffic flows best through that intersection?
I'll second that motion. I think that having our traffic engineers have some flexibility might be appropriate, but I think that they agree that there probably should be no turn on red, but I think it's important that they have that discretion to.
That's your motion. You got a second?
Yeah, I seconded
I
it.
made the motion.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Passes almost unanimously.
Thank you.
My right turn sign, man. Stick to my guns.
All right. 11B.
Commissioners, item 11B is a recommendation to approve the purchase of property, boiler, and machinery, terrorism, and watercraft hull insurance effective April 1st, 2025, for an estimated amount of $8,705,823. Ms. Greeley Gonzalez, Risk Manager, is here to answer questions or present.
All right, are there any questions from the commission? Do you need any presentation? All right.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, it passed unanimously.
Thank you for making my life so easy.
That's our goal.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 11C, formerly 16F1. This is a recommendation to confirm James French as Growth Management and Community Development Department Head, Trinity Scott as Transportation Management Services Department Head, James W. Deloney as Interim Public Utilities Department Head, and Edward Finn as Deputy County Manager, to take effect immediately and approve all necessary budget amendments. This item was moved at Commissioner McDaniel and Commissioner Hall's separate requests.
Commissioner Hall?
Sure, I'll start. Thank you, Chairman. I pulled this forward because it has nothing to do with Mr. French or Ms. Scott or Mr. Finn. I did want to just have a discussion about immediately replacing Dr. Yomez. And the reason, I asked staff yesterday about Mr. Deloney, and let me preface this. I've heard nothing besides stellar stuff from Colonel Deloney, and he's not the part of the discussion. The discussion merely that I want to have is, do we immediately replace him or let natural attrition go? And in doing that, in my thought process, let me start this. With staff yesterday, some of the reasons why they recommend Mr. Deloney was that he brings experience, that he was in that seat before, stellar leadership, and he's able to mentor some of the younger directors. And I understand that, and I appreciated those comments. But when Dr. Yomez called me and said that he was be going to the city, I asked him specifically, after I told him we'd greatly miss him, I asked him specifically, who is capable in your staff to take this ball and run with it? And he said, Kerry Hodgson and Matt McLean were very capable, that they were credentialed engineers. They knew what the vision for the county was. They knew what, they knew they were underneath George's leadership and that they could carry this ball very well. So I made a phone call after I saw the agenda item. I made a phone call to Mr. Fabian at Resource X, and I tried to get an email to all of y'all. I don't know if you got it or not.
Yes.
I highlighted just the important things that he said. But basically what he said is there may be benefits to the county for not immediately doing something, just for taking a pause. And I just want to read just a couple of these line items. In the strategic reassessment, and this all has to do with our priority-based budget initiative to streamline the county and to streamline operations. He said, county administration may likely have a very good reason and an urgent need to fill the position. If there's a need, we should hear it out and consider the interim. And I think we have. And for strategic reassessment, he says, evaluate how functions are currently distributed and identify opportunities for consolidation or realignment as other positions become vacant through natural attrition. In the gradual transition section of Resource X's recommendations, not that we've received yet, but that we will be receiving, was natural attrition can reduce employee anxiety and provide time for existing staff to adapt to any changes in responsibilities. And by strategically managing vacancies and considering a reorganization, the county can ensure that its resources, including personnel, are deployed in the most effective way to achieve desired outcomes. Basically, he is a proponent of us pausing the decision and seeing what can happen. I know that when speaking with the county manager yesterday, when I mentioned Ms. Hodgson and Mr. McLean, that she said that they could use some mentoring. And instead of hiring, costing the taxpayers $250,000 a year with another employee, maybe Mr. Deloney would be available and be willing to consult on as-needed basis. And so I just wanted to throw it out there and open up the discussion. This is something that I feel like we can take advantage of natural attrition and allow our directors that are in place that we're reporting to Dr. Yilmaz to step up to the plate and flourish and to advance the county vision as far as public utilities go. Ms. Hodgson on the solid waste side, Mr. McLean on the water and sewer side. And where Dr. Yilmaz reported directly to Deputy County Manager Mr. Finn, I think he has 8 people reporting to him now. Dr. Yilmaz is going to go away, and if Carrie steps up to the plate and Matt does, then 9 people would be reporting to him. Mr. Van Holly on the sewer side could report to Mr. McLean. Howard could, on the water side, could report to Mr. McLean. Joe Balone would still be reporting to Mr. Finn, and the other guy that was reporting to Dr. Yilmaz he's an analyst, he's a supervisor. He's actually reporting now to Mr. Balone. So we could streamline our operations, utilize natural attrition, give our directors that are existing a chance to shine and to come forth. So I just want to throw that out to everyone.
Commissioner McDaniel?
I like all those ideas. My question is this a guaranteed hire for a year?
No, sir.
Okay.
We think it's a term of 6 to 9 months. It could be less than that. Mr. Deloney is very familiar with the organization. Obviously, my concern is this. We have an extremely important project out to the east, which is the NISA, the Northeast Expansion, which Mr. McLean is responsible for, and to which we need to be sure that we'll meet those timelines. We've made commitments to developers to deliver service. The second thing is, besides that, we have recently tasked Ms. Hodgson with landfill, some work to do with the expansion of the landfill and other solid waste matters, which will take a fair amount of her time. We're now 2 months from hurricane season. So that leaves me now pretty thin at public utilities with a young staff, and all of you know the challenges that we've experienced in filling positions. Public utilities, and I'm sorry, Trinity, but public utilities is obviously the most important component of infrastructure we have. We love all of our kids, love you kids, but if you can't turn on the tap and you can't flush the toilet, then that's what separates us, from developing countries.
Yeah, but if you can't drive home to get to the toilet, then you got a big problem as well.
Yeah.
See what I have to deal with?
I'm not done yet.
That having been said, I understand the need for this evaluation. We absolutely agree with that, looking at the organization from the bottom to the top and the top to the bottom to look at what reorganizational efficiencies could be achieved. Resource X, again, had concentrated on the general fund side of the house, and we'll be moving into the enterprise funds. It's an opportunity for Mr. Deloney to participate in that exercise and perhaps achieve both of our goals. Us having a solid hand on the wheel for a few months, and also challenging him to look at all of those things that Commissioner Hall just went through.
I wasn't done. I asked one question. So consequently, Commissioner Hall, my thoughts are we can accomplish both things. This isn't a full-time hire. We have engaged Resource X. I like everything that you're saying. I think for a short period of time, having an experienced new set of eyes watching everything that's going on, offering us some additional opinions, I think that's a prudent path for us to travel right now.
Commissioner LoCastro.
Yeah, my understanding after the conversation that we had last week is when I met with you all on this, is that Mr. Deloney was coming on as an interim, almost like as as sort of a contract type of employee. What I would say is we just have to have a very specific contract with him. It can't be open-ended. We have to have an out clause that if he serves for 30 or 60 days, and it looks like, mission accomplished. He has mentored the folks that, we're not here to carry him through 6 or 9 months. Or if the magical things don't happen that we hope happens come mentorship-wise, and we're approaching hurricane season, and, you as the county manager have, specific concerns that he has an open-ended contract where he's not going to blindside us and go, yeah, I think I'm done. I gave you my 60 days, but if he's needed, but that the fine print on the bottom gives us an out with a very short fuse. I would support that.
Yes, sir. He would be an at-will employee to me, and to Mr. Finn. And I think that Mr. Deloney's time frame is much shorter than mine. He had said 3 to 6, and I knowing Mr. Deloney, I imagine that he's pretty confident in that. I said 6 to 9 just to be reasonable, and also so that we have that time to be sure that we've been able to look at everything that you all want us to look at. We're not looking to stretch this out. And the other thing is, he's not looking to make a career of this. He's already had a career and he's retired. I don't expect that he wants to come backwards in his life to working, years in this position.
I think that actually this puts us in a really perfect position. You've got a spot that you may or may not have to fill. That's Commissioner Hall's point.
Mm-hmm.
But we have someone who's familiar with the system, who we know can provide guidance, and that gives you 3 to 6 or 9 months to really determine whether someone else in the agency can step up to the leadership role. And if you make that determination that you need to do a search, you've got the time to do it. So I think we're really in a good position. I think that's consistent with what Commissioner Hall is looking to do, which is but to see if there's somebody in the agency that can assume that role without causing any other disruptions. So I like that thought. Commissioner Hall.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to, I failed to mention, I asked Ms. Hodgson and Mr. McLean three questions. I said, if it's the will of the board to do this, I said, are you willing, are you capable, and are you competent? And each one of them emphatically said, absolutely, we would love the opportunity. So, I understand where we're going, short term, but I read the agenda item, and to me, I automatically saw that we were going out for a national search to replace Dr. Yomaz. I don't necessarily agree with the national search. I think we should allow things to go. Let Mr. Deloney do his mentorship, and let's see how our directors reply to it, and see if we can't streamline some organization, because I feel like we are heavy at the top.
Yes, sir, and we're happy to do that, and we won't embark on a national search or any type of search until Mr. Deloney is able to get in there and meet with the staff, and we can certainly report back to you pretty quickly.
All right. I think we're ready for a motion at this point, unless there are other questions or comments.
I'll make the motion. I'll make a motion to approve it with the stipulation that we're not going to commit to a national search for an automatic replacement of Dr. Yomaz.
Second.
All right. We have a motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioners. That brings us to item 12A. This is a recommendation to remove Christina Aguilera from the East of 951 Ad Hoc Advisory Committee for consecutive absences, appoint Bruce Hamels to replace the vacant seat, appoint a member to the alternate seat, and consider extending the sunset date from August 15th, 2025 to August 15th, 2026. County Attorney.
I think the title of the executive summary says it all. The board should consider replacing Christina Aguilera with Bruce Hamels, and then you have a choice of applicants for the other position.
Okay. Commissioner Castro.
I was going to just make a motion we approve, but I was just going to make a comment and say I was really glad to see this on the agenda. County manager and I spoke about it, and I would just, remind all of us that when we chair different committees, I mean, the handful that I've chaired, I've caught these people quite a bit, where we have people that sit on these committees and they've been absent for quite some time. So I was glad to see this one. Someone obviously caught this, and I think we just need to do more of it. But we talked about it at great length, and I'd make a motion that we approve this, and unless somebody had some other questions.
You need to make a choice of the three candidates.
I'll get it.
Okay. Well, I thought one was being recommended.
Don't only one of the seats.
Okay.
Let's hear from Commissioner McDaniel. He's got the most knowledge about the committee, and most history with it.
And you're correct, Commissioner LaCastro. The motion is to replace Christina Aguilera with Bruce Hamels, and I had made that under Commissioner comments, but now we're codifying it in an executive summary. And then in the second portion of the motion, my motion, your motion, I don't care who makes it, would be to appoint one of the other three applicants and my as an alternate, because we do have a lady who was an alternate who's suffering from health issues. And so my suggestion would be of the three, I'd pick Mr. Rankin. So my motion is for Hamels to replace Aguilera and Rankin to be the alternate.
All right.
I'd second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimously.
Wonderful birthday.
It's hard being a rock star, though.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 15, Staff and Commission General Communications. Item 15A is public comments on general topics not heard on the current or future agenda by individuals not already heard during the previous public comments in this meeting.
We have none.
Item 15B is staff project updates. We actually have two. First, we have Mr. Mullins, who is going to talk to you about the impact of the federal continuing resolution on board projects.
Thank you, Commissioners. For the record, John Mullins, your Director of Communications, Government, and Public Affairs. And since your last meeting, let me go ahead and get this queued up. Since your last meeting, Congress and the President have ensured no government shutdown between now and the end of the 2025 fiscal year. However, this is the first time that the federal government has worked the entire year under a continuing resolution. Now, the CR did make some adjustments to funding, resulting in a net decrease of about $7 billion in spending. But of particular interest to us, the CR did not fund congressional members' community project funds and grants. Now, as you know, in the last federal cycle, the board submitted two funding requests to Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart, including the Everglades Boulevard I-75 interchange feasibility analysis and for funding towards the rehabilitation of the Golden Gate Parkway building into a Veterans Community Center. Again, the good news, no government shutdown, but the flip side of that coin is that it also takes away any urgency to negotiate and pass an actual FY25 spending package. So barring any further surprises, the federal government will be spending at FY 2024 levels through the rest of FY 25. Now, reinforcing that a new fiscal year spending package for FY 25 is unlikely, last week we were contacted by Congressman Diaz-Balart's office and notified that we're going to have to put in a new application for FY 2026 if we wish to continue to pursue funding for these two projects. So in addition to providing you with this update, I'm here to confirm the board's desire to resubmit for the FY 26 cycle. And given that we're already halfway through FY 2025 and the FY 26 appropriation cycle is already getting underway, the additional time that we may have to await awarded funds is probably about 6 months, but that's assuming that the FY 26 package is agreed to and passed on time. And I want to assure the board and the public, particularly our veteran community partners, that the continuing resolution is not negatively impacting the State Veterans Nursing Home Project. In fact, it could be a blessing in disguise. The Nursing Home Project is not a community project funding grant, but a VA-operated construction grant program that is annually funded by Congress. And in most years, the funding typically allocated to this program is between $90 and $150 million per year. Now, given the CR also allows for spending at the FY 2024 level, for that particular fiscal year, the VA received over $160 million for the program. So that puts the $74 million construction match requested by the state at even better odds of being funded. Now, through Senator Scott's office, we've also received information about our placement on the upcoming construction grant ranking list, and as expected, our state partner will be residing in Priority Group 1, Sub-Priority 3, as a state with a defined great need of veterans' beds, and also having their 35% matching funds in hand and unencumbered. Now, I asked a follow-up question to see if the VA could confirm that we're the only project in 1.3, but they declined to confirm or deny. And as the only other great need state, if it's confirmed Texas is not also in 1.3, or at least not ahead of us in 1.3, it's highly probable that our nursing home project will be awarded the full 65% construction match during this current fiscal year. So for now, we'll await the ranking list. The official list should come out between July and September. But back to the question at hand, is it your desire to resubmit and continue pursuit of the federal funding for our 2 board community project funding requests?
All right, are there any questions? I think initially we do need a motion to resubmit the applications for the community funding in the 26 FY26 budget. I know staff is already working on those applications, but we need a formal approval. So is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion, and we have a second to direct staff to continue making the application for those 2 community projects through Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart's office. If there's no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. 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 All opposed? It passes unanimously.
And also, just so the board knows, staff will be completing the application. The chair will have to sign a congressional request letter on behalf of the BCC, which he is already authorized to do. And it may require us to have the support letters from the community that applied to the projects to be updated, redated, and resubmitted. The Appropriations Committee sent out instructions saying that all letters had to be recent, and now we are trying to determine how recent is.
John, what's the deadline? So we just approved to resubmit. What's the deadline? I thought I saw something on a couple of emails.
Yeah, that's coming up in April.
April 3rd?
Yeah.
Is that still, okay.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, that's what was on a letter that I saw, okay.
All right. Any other information that you have for us on this?
No, happy to answer any other questions about any of the 3.
All right. Any questions? Seeing none? Ms. Patterson?
Our second update, I'm going to ask Mr. French to come forward with an update on the ongoing criminal investigation on the issue you may have been reading about in the news for signed and sealed building permits and other documents.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Happy birthday, Commissioner LaCastro. Commissioner McDaniel.
It was you. He didn't even say anything.
I
to
just
me.
did them in order. And last but not least, Troy, happy birthday. Jamie French for the record, Department Head for Community Development and Growth Management Community Development. So with regards to building permits, and this is more so of a public service announcement perhaps, so the way the Florida Building Code works, it's predominantly identified within Chapter 49 and 553 of the Florida statutes, and it lays out the guidelines for each local authority having jurisdiction. So whether you're a city, a township, a county, every of those government agencies are required to have a registered building official. Now, some, based on your population, some can go in with a provisional license or they have to have a full license. In Collier County, we have, because of our population is so large, both our building official and his backup, our deputy building official, are both licensed, Florida state licensed building officials. However, licensing is a regulatory function of the state of Florida. That is done through the Department of Business Professional Regulation, no different than the licenses that our staff, that we receive. A general contractor or a specialized contractor is identified with the state of Florida that's required to have a license. That license is mandated, it is regulated, it is maintained, and it is distributed for public knowledge to include local authorities having jurisdictions. That information is controlled by the state. In this particular case, and this is not the first case we've had, where we've had a licensed professional engineer or architect. Licensed professional engineers or licensed architects aren't always required. However, in certain types of construction, they are. And if you identify yourself as one and you submit drawings for review, the local authority having jurisdiction validates that license up against the state's database. Again, the state controls the license. It's not done at a local level. In this particular case, what we've got, there was a myriad of permits that all came in under a state licensed contractor that introduced licensed, signed and sealed plans from a state licensed engineer. That license, later to be found out, the state of Florida identified to us that license was no longer valid. and that an investigation was taking place. Just like any other building permit, the Florida Building Code identifies the minimum standards of what a building permit application needs to hold. The licensed drawings of an architect or an engineer are not part of that. So when the state came to us and they said, we want to see all of these permits associated with this engineer or with an architect, that is a very daunting task. We're actually going through and we're looking at time periods, permit by permit by permit, opening up those files. We are an enterprise fund, so it is actually paid for by the industry, the people that buy permits or pay for permits. But we're taking it one step further. So we're currently in design on our software that at the time of application, when we go through that review of the documents that are included, it will include that architect, his license number or whatnot. So in the event that this comes back up, because this one's pretty large, but also because it's a criminal investigation at this point, there's certain information, although we may be the record holder of the permit, we're not involved with other than turning over all of the documentation that we have. But this particular case is being prosecuted, as we're aware of, by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and any other agency, to include, we understand, according to the news article, maybe the FBI or the Collier County Sheriff's Office, but we've been working directly with the state of Florida on this particular one. And we do know that it has affected some of the permits in Marco Island, as well as some permits in the city of Naples. However, we are not the local authority having jurisdiction. They have their own building official, they have their own processes, they have their own elected body, and just like under Chapter 49 and 553, they follow those same set of standards. It may not be the same software, may not be the same filing system, but the state identifies what that minimum needs to be.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Two things. Number one, so did I hear you say you don't think that we have any permit issues with this architectural license fraud?
This would not, as
For
far as
Collier
the county, we have nothing outside of, we qualified the license with the state of Florida at the time of application, and then we also qualify it before a certificate of occupancy or certificate of completion can be issued. That is the requirements of 489 and 553. So at the time a CO was issued, state of Florida says, you've got a valid license. We have no right of appeal. Our only right of appeal on this is that if our building official, your building official, feels like there is a willful code violation with regards to the elements of construction. This was not the case. This is a licensing dilemma that is 100% controlled by the state of Florida.
My other question was, or thought more than anything is, and I understand that we didn't necessarily have any permit issues with this particular theoretically fraud maneuver, but I would like to hear about it from our building official before they're talking to DSAC and it gets printed in the news. I'd like to be briefed on something like this if it happens again.
Yeah, my apologies for that, Commissioner. That was a new building director, and quite honestly, your building director, that is more an administratively assigned position, because under 49 and 553, it says that the building official shall do their job without interference. So as a board, as the senior leadership of that group, I cannot give him or her direction on how to interpret the code. Only the state of Florida can do that.
I understand.
But it wasn't a building official, this was a building director, and I will take care of that.
No need for sorry. I just was stipulating I'd like to hear about it ahead of the news.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner LaCastro.
Thank you, sir. But two things, Mr. French. I mean, we do have some Collier County residents that were caught in this, right? I mean, we issued some COs, unbeknownst to us, that if we would have known more, we wouldn't have, right? I mean, we're not cleared from all this. I mean, I'm hearing from citizens in Collier County that are like, oh my God, we did business with this fraudulent person, and what do we do? Who should we talk to? So, it's not like we're in the clear. We have some, and not that we did anything wrong, but we have some people that are affected by this, correct?
So the only people that would actually be not in the clear would be those individual homeowners, because they have a responsibility. I don't want to say buyer beware, but in many cases, you may have a project manager, you may have an owner's representative that actually does some of the validation both in the field as a third party. It is not a requirement. We have no right of appeal. If we could have gone back in time not knowing what we don't know or not knowing what we didn't know, we would have still had to have issued the CO because that's what the state law is. However, our cooperation is the best thing we can do, and also you have your own local licensing group within code enforcement, so that if there is fraud, we already have a very good working relationship with the Collier County Sheriff's Office, and the conviction against a license or defrauding someone is one thing, but in the event that we can add to that and make that conviction even more painful to where this can't reoccur by this person ever, they could no longer practice in this field or whatnot, those are the type of things that we do consider in that conviction process with your board assigned, your Collier County Licensing Board.
That's the second thing I wanted to ask, only for you to get it on the record, and it was based on a conversation that you and I had. When these things pop up, we learn a few things in the county, and you had said, hey, there's a few changes that we're making internally that are tightening a few things up. Do you want to go on the record and maybe just
Sure.
Go over those?
So as I was saying before, we have no requirement to track projects by engineer or architect. We're going to go ahead and do that in the event that this reoccurs. And it's for getting this information to those agencies faster, but also for saving taxpayers money, so that we could just, by a simple query or a search, we have the ability. And so we'll go through that. Unfortunately, it does take a great deal. We do a lot of internal programming through our CityView software. We have our own support team, and that's what the industry has demanded over time. They're very good. They're programmers. They're database engineers. This is what they do. We'll bring that software down. We'll run it through testing. And when we stand it back up, we want to make sure that none of our clients experience any type of failure with the software.
That's good. Thank you, sir.
All right. Ms. Patterson, anything else?
No, sir. That brings us to 15C, which is staff and commission general communications. The only thing I have for you all is we've continued to work to schedule the mental health workshop. We're looking at a tentative date of June 3rd, which is a regular workshop date. We'll work with your aides on that date, potentially also to make that a full day or at least a 3/4 of a day, adding the AUIR on, which would be timely in advance of the budget. So mental health and AUIR for June 3rd, and again, we'll reach out to all of your aides to make sure that Tuesday works for you all. With that, I have nothing else. Mr. Klatskow.
Nothing else, thank you.
All right. We'll start, Commissioner Colwell. Anything for the good of the order here?
I think I'm pretty good, thank
All
you.
right. Commissioner Hall?
Nothing from me, thanks.
Birthday boy?
My mother sent specific thanks to you for indulging me this morning and allowing her to sing happy birthday to me, and I want to thank everyone for the many wishes.
Commissioner Castro?
I have nothing. Thank you, sir.
All right, I don't have anything as well. I want to thank everybody for a great day, and our lunch was really nice with the students. That always makes for a great day. So with that, we are adjourned.